Over the past years, as I played more and more racing games, I've noticed the trend of slowly but surely killing any kind of interesting progression in these games. If you look at games like Assetto Corsa, there's literally no progression. Yes, you can go at the career mode, but they just don't really interest people. Like, you can do the hot lap stuff and it's all over the place with what type of cars you start out with, how you progress with the tiers. It's all over the place in that regard. On the other end, we have games like Forza Horizon, where you can have pretty much all of the supercars in the first half hour because you get the wheel spins, so your progression is not consistent, and so it's not really built around any specific milestones, and overall it just makes it kind of pointless. But more often, the bigger problem I see with games that try to have like a progression system is that once you pass a certain level of cars, let it be performance or race class, you never really thought that, hey, all of those other things that you drove before, they still have a purpose. You can still use them. You can still take part in, let's say, races, series, championships with those cars, and not just throw them away because you now have a different new toy to play with. Even games that I like Trail Out, it has a class system. You start out in the lower classes, and as the game goes on, you finish in the higher classes. And depending on how easy you find the final mission, you might even be stuck using one or two particular cars to finish up the game. Now, after that, yeah, sure, you can go at it and do any kind of crazy stuff you want, but the game itself, with that structured storyline, really just tells you, okay, you start out with this class, progress with the next one, and the next one. You aren't really convinced that you should keep the other cars, unless if you really feel attached to those cars. Games like Need for Speed occasionally tries to break up this mold by separating the cars into different classes, but then again, they are not consistent with this. Unbound has performance-based classes, and Payback had race types with the classes. But I still feel that the problem still stays. It's kind of hard to, well, not hard, it's rare. It's rare to see games tell you that, oh, you can have this car, and both of them are still relevant 10 to 20 hours into the game. And then there's CarX Street. It's a game that came out 2 years ago on phones. It's new on PC. It had a rough launch because the economy was completely trash in it, and now they tuned it to the point where I think it's pretty good. It's still a bit grindy. It still has elements that tells you that this was a mobile game originally, but when it comes to encouraging players to use all of their cars, I think it does a pretty good job. So normally, once you start out with the game, you start off with the lowest class. You finish up one club's events, and then you unlock the next performance level with a different club. You can either leave your previous car logged into the previous club or upgrade it to the next club's requirements. And as time goes on, the idea is to have one or two cars in different clubs and do these elite races, which are just pretty much the same races that you did before, but with specific prices. You get a normal currency, you get the premium currency, but once you start this race, you can only retry it about 3 times before the game tells you, nope, you need to finish up this session. So if you lose the race after all of the tries, you cannot just restart this race, you need to wait. Or if you won the race, you still need to wait. There's a time countdown after every elite race, and that's when you'll have to do what you want to do, and you end up developing, well, I think the ideal situation here is that you end up developing a schedule. You do this race first, then switch to the other car and do the other race, and you go on like this. Maybe do some car delivery side missions or package delivery missions to kill off time and gain some money. Now, is this perfect? Far from it. It's far from perfect. Car delivery missions are, without a doubt, one of the easiest ways to get some money, because they are literally just go from A to B and don't crash the car, and they don't take long whatsoever. Package delivery missions are a bit different because depending on which tier of delivery you do, you either need to deliver 2, 3 or 4 packages. And honestly, the highest tier delivery just doesn't really make sense. I think it would either need to be more rewarding, or I don't know, it's just don't deliver 4 packages. It's just you get to do that in a minivan, and it takes a long time. It's just, I don't know, yeah, it doesn't really worth the time to do. But still, I think overall, CarX Street does a pretty good job at answering this problem. You start out with the slowest class, unlock the higher tiers, but still get encouraged to use all of your cars because all of them are still valuable. You build connection, you upgrade them over time to perform better in the class. It's a win-win, and it's that easy.